Hi, thank you so much for clicking on this video and giving a new booktuber a chance. My name is Shelby and this is Shelby Reads. I am a femme lesbian with a wonderful butch wife, and if you want to hear more about Sapphic books, which is really all I read, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you read from April to May. Today I'll be doing my reading wrap-up from April to May of 2025. I read 20 books in April and May, and that's because in April I was a bit behind. I am trying to read 100 books this year, which is a bit higher than last year, and I was just behind, so I was trying to read faster, so it was about 10 books per month for the last couple of months. Let's get on with the video. The first book that I read was The Last Girls Standing by Jennifer Dugan. This is a YA thriller book, and I read it on ebook. The synopsis of this is, Sloane and Cherry and Sloane. They met only a few days before masked men with machetes attacked the summer camp where they worked, a massacre that left the rest of their fellow counselors dead. Now, months later, the two are inseparable, their traumatic experience bonding them in ways no one else can understand. But as new evidence comes to light and Sloane learns more about the motives behind the ritual killing that brought them together, she begins to suspect that her girlfriend may be more than just a survivor. She may actually have been a part of it. Cherry tries to reassure her, but Sloane only becomes more distraught. Is this gaslighting or reality? Is Cherry a victim or a perpetrator? Is Sloane confused, or is she seeing things clearly for the very first time? Against all odds, Sloane survived that hot summer night, but will she survive what comes next? I really enjoyed this book. You would think with all the horror movies I watch all the time and all the horror and thriller I read, I would be able to pick up on things more easily, but a lot of the times, especially in thrillers, I'm always like, no, how could you? I'm always pleasantly surprised by most thrillers, which makes for a very good read. I feel like my brain is very impressionable in that way, and I really liked it. I felt like the twist was pretty satisfying, and I felt like the explanation of the events, whether Sloane's perception of reality is real or not, I thought it was really good. I thought it was a really interesting read overall that left me still with some questions, because I feel like it's good for thrillers to leave you with a couple of questions that didn't get answered, you know. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I think for YA and thriller it was really solid. I read another YA thriller that we'll talk about in a little bit that didn't hold up as well as this one, but I really did like this one. The second book I read was Never Trust a Gemini by Freja Nicole Woolf. This was a YA romance, and I also read this one on ebook. Life is fraught for 14-year-old Zodiac-obsessed Kat. First there's a minor bus meets girl accident, then there's a boy next door suitor who can't take a hint, but the most desperate disaster of all is Kat's crush on the stunning and poetic Allison Bridgewater. According to their star charts, Kat and Allison are the perfect match, to which Allison, woe alas, remains oblivious. But when the dangerously cool Morgan Delaney wades into the river to save Kat's sketchbook of kissing Disney princesses, she sends Kat's stars spinning. Can Kat get over her Allison obsession and follow her heart towards Morgan? Or should she exercise caution? After all, Morgan is a Gemini, and if there's one thing Kat's Bible to the stars has taught her, it's that you can never, ever trust a Gemini. This book was just fine. I couldn't really relate to the main character. She wasn't okay with her friend bullying other people, but she really didn't do anything about it. And as someone who was bullied in school, that makes it really hard for me to relate at all. I know this is YA, but I'm reading it, you know? It wasn't terrible. It wasn't the best. And I found a lot of the Zodiac stuff to be kind of annoying. I know that a lot of people like that. I read another one that had a lot to do with astrology, but I just feel like sometimes it's a little bit too much. Also because this was very British and they're about 14 years old, I think. You lost me. I'm 31. And there are YA that I relate to and really like, but this one was just not really it for me. I gave this 3.25 out of 5 stars on Storygraph. It was pretty middle of the road. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't terrible. It was just alright. Next, I read Love Under Glasse by Kristina Meister. This was also an ebook, and this was a YA romance as well. Elle Glasse's mother controls her life. what she does, who she dates, even what she's allowed to say. Elle only has two ways of holding on to her freedom. One is her popular anonymous blog, hidden from Mama Glasse. The other is what she so often blogs about, her feelings for Riley, the girl who works at the ice cream parlor. Riley is fierce, free, and rides a killer motorcycle, and Elle cannot help but love her. But Mama Glasse can never find out about her sexuality unless Elle is willing to rebel. When Elle runs away, Riley feels responsible. She knows what it's like to be alone, and she can't deny her deep desire to learn Elle's story. In a move she might end up regretting, she makes a devil's bargain with Mama Glasse to hunt Elle down. Riley isn't trying to bring her home though, because she knows an evil spell when she sees one. A spell of fear and shame Elle is finally starting to break. This huntress might lose her own heart, but it's a risk she's willing to take. I feel like this book had really good ideas, but I don't think that like any of them were executed to the best of their ability. I feel like there were some really good ideas, but then I feel like they were kind of jumbled with other ideas. I'm going to put spoilers here. I'm going to put it in the time thing so you can skip if you want. I really liked that Elle took her life in her own hands and like ran away from potential conversion therapy. And I really liked that a lot of the story did focus on her running away and her survival. I thought that that was really well done and interesting compared to the rest of the stuff. But I understand why Elle had a crush on Riley. I don't really understand why Riley drops everything to see this girl to help her. And like, she's also like tricking Elle's mom, but it doesn't really make sense why you would do it that way. I don't know. I know it was to get certain information that the mom has, but like at the same time I was like, oh, I don't know about that. I just don't understand why she like caught feelings so easily. It felt like insta-love on her side, whereas like they go to school together and Elle has been watching Riley a lot for like a long time, so like I understood where that part came from, but it didn't do it for me. Also, there was a serial killer in the middle for basically no reason other than drama. I feel like running across the United States from like the South to Chicago is already scary enough when you're a girl who's alone and who's having to end up walking most of the way. Like, I just don't understand why we added a serial killer and then did basically nothing with it. I don't get it. I also don't get why they would be together. I honestly would probably think, if I was like, are they going to break up after this book? The answer would be yes. I don't think they're going to last. They're not going to get married. That's just my opinion. Okay, spoilers over. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It was just okay. Also just middle of the road. You know, it was fine. Then I read Fitting In by Amanda Riley. This is an adult romance, and I read this on ebook as well. Starting a new job is hard, especially if you're the boss's daughter. Heather Bailey has been in charge of Silver Arches, the prestigious London shopping centre, for several years. Financial turmoil brings a new investor to secure the future, and Heather finds herself playing office politics with the notoriously difficult entrepreneur Leo Flynn. Walking a fine line between standing her ground and being willing to accept change, Heather has her work cut out for her. When Leo demands that his daughter be found a job at Silver Arches, things become even harder. Scarlett Flynn has never fit in. Not in the army, not in her father's firm, not even in her own family. So starting work at Silver Arches won't be any different, will it? I loved this book. I love that the main characters were working like relatable jobs, and even though there is a billionaire in the mix, I didn't feel like he was really as important, which was good, because like I feel like if he had been more central to the story, I wouldn't have liked it as much. I really like that even though there was the urge to kind of jump to conclusions about Scarlett, Heather wanted to figure out why Scarlett hadn't lasted in the army or any of her jobs, why the first department she puts her in, it's not working out super well. And I thought it was really amazing to have like an autistic love interest in Scarlett. I thought that it was really cute and really sweet, and I feel like there was a lot of effort from the community of this shopping center, from a lot of the different people, to understand Scarlett, and I really liked that, and I really liked the exploration of how Scarlett's relationship with her father isn't going so great. Overall, I thought it was really heartwarming and nice for a change to have like a neurodivergent lead love interest. I thought it was really fun. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I'm kind of picky about adult romance too, so I was very pleasantly surprised by this. Next, I read Guava Flavored Lies by J.J. Arias. This is also an adult romance, and I also read this on ebook. I like to try to get my ebooks out of the way because I really don't like ebooks. There's something about it, like tactilely, that I don't really enjoy. I've read a couple of her books now. They weren't all really my favorite though, until this one. All's Fair in Love and Pastry War. Sylvia Campos and Lauren Machado have hated each other since before they were born. For generations, the Campos and Machado families have blamed each other for stealing pastry recipes they claim their great-grandfathers originated before fleeing Castro's Cuba. Having spent their lives as rivals, Lauren and Sylvie are now in their early 30s and primed to take over their respective family bakeries. That means working long, hot seasons of outdoor food festivals where they are forced to endure each other, albeit with a lot of bantering and barb trading. After all, no one knows how to get under Sylvie's skin like Lauren. Sick of dealing with Lauren and her thieving family, Sylvie sets out to unmask the Machados for the traitors they are. But when the truth is not what Sylvie expects, will the fiery exchanges between her and Lauren turn into something hot enough to melt away generational baggage? Can they get the chance to rekindle what they almost had in high school? Okay, so let's discuss the elephant in the room. This color is fugly. I wish they had gotten something better because the book is actually really good. I really enjoyed it. I loved the like rivals slash enemies to lovers and family feud aspect. I thought it made it really entertaining and made it really understandable why they hadn't just like knocked it off and started kissing yet. I really liked a portion of this with Lauren when she's dating somebody else where it really discusses how a baker's schedule can really mess up relationships because she has to get up super early and then go to bed super late. Like, it's not working out with this other girl because of that. I read another book before this called It's Not My Favorite. I have a rant review about it. I don't feel like it did very well explaining that a baker's schedule is like crazy different from like normal 9-to-5 jobs, you know? But this one I really enjoyed. I felt like the tension was there. It was a really fun read. I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was like almost perfect, but there was just a little something missing, you know? Okay, the next one I have a full rant review on, so please go and watch it. I had a lot of fun doing it. It's called Penny for Your Heart by Season Vining. This is an adult contemporary romance, and I read it on ebook. This is the first book in a series. I read the first and the third. They're kind of like standalone, like they're barely connected by characters, but it's not important to read them all in order because I read the third one first. At 14, Penny Winters fell out of the closet and in love with her best friend, Misa Ito. But before they truly understood their feelings, Misa and her family were gone. Over a decade later, when Penny secures a job at a top New York advertising agency, she has a second chance at first love when she's introduced to the lead account executive, Misa. But the road to happiness is riddled with potholes. Misa is still impossibly beautiful, but super cold. And Misa shows no recollection of Penny, the girl who once showed her how to skateboard, make daisy chain crowns, and shared every secret with. On top of that, there's the huge engagement ring and photo of a handsome man on Misa's desk. The butterflies Penny feels don't seem one-sided, and she wants answers. Penny has no idea that she's begging for the impossible. Getting Misa to admit anything means asking her to do the unthinkable. Put aside her career and her father's expectations to give in to her heart, which has always belonged to Penny. I guess that by the admission that I have a rant review about this, you guys already know how I feel about this. I hated this book. This book was insufferable. I read the third one first, and that one is somehow like slightly better than this one. Slightly. Only slightly though. This is full of stereotypes and bad tropes and terrible writing and really cringe millennial stuff. Again, I'm a millennial, I can say it. It's a terrible book. I gave it 1 star. Please watch my rant review. I worked really hard on it and I had a lot of fun doing it. Okay, I can't find this book anywhere. I think my wife started reading it and then it went missing. So I read The Third Daughter by Adrienne Tooley. I read this on paperback. It is the first in, I think, a duology. Yeah, so far it's a duology. I don't know if it will stay that way. A prophecy poisoned, a queendom at stake. A magic vial of tears holds their fates. A sweeping fantasy about betrayal, sisterhood, and deadly quests for power, with a stunning, slow-burn Sapphic romance. For centuries, the citizens of Vel have waited for their new maiden to return. The prophecy states she will appear as the third daughter of a third daughter. When the fabled child is finally born to Vel's reigning queen, all rejoice except for Elodie, the queen's eldest child, who has lost her claim to the crown. The only way for Elodie to protect Vel is to retake the throne. To do so, she must debilitate the third daughter, her youngest sister, Brienne. Desperate, Elodie purchases a sleeping potion from Sabine, who sells sadness, but the apothecary mistakenly sends the princess away with a vial of tears instead of a harmless sleeping brew. Sabine's sadness is dangerously powerful, and Brienne slips into a slumber from which she will not wake. With the fates of their families and country hanging in the balance, Sabine and Elodie hurry to revive the third daughter, while a slow-burning attraction between the two girls erupts in full force. I really loved the fantasy elements in here, and I also really loved the religious system because it made sense as to why Elodie was so desperate to have her sister kind of fall asleep for a bit, and also why she thought her sister probably wasn't a good idea for her to be queen. I really loved the politics, the church stuff, the magic, the relationship between the two main girls I thought was really solid and interesting. It was a really good fantasy YA for sure. I've also read Sweet and Bitter Magic by Adrienne Tooley and also Sophie and the Bone Song, and I liked this one better than those two. I liked Sophie and the Bone Song a lot, but like Sweet and Bitter Magic wasn't really for me. So I think her writing has legitimately just gotten better, and I would highly recommend this book. I gave this a 5 out of 5. It was super good. Then I read The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner. This is a hardcover, obviously. It is historical fantasy, and it's for adults. 1873. At an abandoned chateau on the outskirts of Paris, a dark seance is about to take place, led by acclaimed spiritualist Vaudeline Dallaire. Known worldwide for her talent in conjuring the spirits of murder victims to ascertain the identities of the people who killed them, she is highly sought after by widows and investigators alike. Lena Wicks has come to Paris to find answers about her sister's death, but to do so, she must embrace the unknown and overcome her own logic-driven bias against the occult. When Vaudeline is beckoned to England to solve a high-profile murder, Lena accompanies her as an understudy. But as the women team up with the powerful men of London's exclusive Seance Society to solve the mystery, they begin to suspect that they are not merely out to solve a crime, but perhaps entangled in one themselves. I really liked this book, but it did take me a while to get into it. I also was a little bit jarred by the man's POV because I guess I wasn't expecting it. Once you get there though, you get hooked. There's way more crime and murder than I originally thought, so it was super fun for me. If you liked Affinity by Sarah Waters, this has very similar vibes to that. I was really excited when we got to see all the questions answered and everything come to light. I thought it was a really good book. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I then read Squad by Maggie Tokuda-Hall. This is a physical graphic novel. It is horror fantasy YA. When Becca starts at a posh new high school, she never expects to be noticed by the most popular girls. She never expects them to invite her into their pack. But they do. They show her how to dress and how to act and what parties to go to. And then one night under the full moon, they let her in on their secret. They're werewolves. This is when a normal person would run screaming, but Becca doesn't run. She doesn't scream. She doesn't want to escape. She wants to belong. And now she does. She's all new. It's perfect. For a little while anyway, until Thatcher dies and things get complicated. This book really gave me what Never Trust a Gemini couldn't. I understood why she fell in with the crowd she did and why terrible things were happening and why she was also part of them. I really liked the art, and I'm typically a fan of Maggie's writing. I've read several by her. I really enjoy it. Yeah, and it's a really fun werewolf read. There's really nice illustrations in my opinion. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. My last book for April was an Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. This is an adult horror historical fantasy, and there's also romance in it. Deep in the forgotten hills of Massachusetts stands St. Perpetua's Women's College. Isolated and ancient, it is not a place for timid girls. Here, secrets are currency, ambition is lifeblood, and strange ceremonies welcome students into the fold. On her first day of class, Laura Sheridan is thrust into an intense academic rivalry with the beautiful and enigmatic Carmilla. Together, they are drawn into the confidence of their demanding poetry professor, De La Fontaine, who holds her own dark obsession with Carmilla. As their rivalry blossoms into something far more delicious, Laura must confront her own strange hungers. Tangled in a sinister game of politics, bloodthirsty professors, and magic, Laura and Carmilla must decide how much they are willing to sacrifice in their ruthless pursuit of knowledge. So this book is a Carmilla retelling, which is a classic by Sheridan Le Fanu. It is a vampire story that predates Dracula. I have read it. It is one of my favorite classics of all time. And so I was a little worried about this book because, please don't kill me everybody, I didn't like A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. I didn't really like it. I mean, I felt like it very much reflected Dracula and how Dracula is told, but I didn't really like Dracula either. I find it to be very odd and boring. So I was very skeptical and worried going into this, but with that being said, I actually really loved this book. I loved that it took place in like the 60s in Massachusetts at a like women's college. I thought that was great. I felt like there were discussions of really hard topics. I wish it had touched upon what I consider to be grooming a bit more, but it really didn't, and I am a little sad about that. I feel like this is a really good like modern gothic. I think S.T. Gibson did really well, and I would be interested in reading more of S.T. Gibson's work. It's just Dowry of Blood wasn't for me. This has the exact vibes that any Carmilla remake should have, so I really enjoyed it. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. There's not much I would change about it. I started off with May with Sorry Bro by Taleen Voskuni. This is an ebook contemporary romance that I read. When Nar's non-Armenian boyfriend gets down on one knee and proposes to her in front of a room full of drunk San Francisco tech boys, she realizes it's time to find someone who shares her idea of romance. Enter her mother. Armed with plenty of mom guilt and a spreadsheet of Facebook-stalked Armenian men, she convinces Nar to attend Explore Armenia, a month-long series of events in the city. But it's not the mom-approved playboy doctor or wealthy engineer who catches her eye, it's Arabuni, a woman as equally immersed in the witchy arts as she is in preserving Armenian identity. Suddenly, with Arabuni as her wing woman, the events feel like far less of a chore and much more of an adventure. Who knew cooking up koftas, I'm so sorry, I don't know, together could be so sexy? Arabuni helps Nar see the beauty of their shared culture and makes her feel understood in a way she never has before. But there's one teeny problem. Nar's not exactly out as bisexual. The clock is ticking on Nar's double life. The closing event banquet is coming up, and her entire extended family will be there, along with Arabuni. Her worlds will inevitably collide, but Nar is determined to be brave, determined to claim her happiness. Proudly Armenian, proudly bisexual, and proudly herself for the first time in her life. This book was so entertaining. I really found Nar's perspective understandable and why it was so hard for her to come out and be happy with a woman. I also found the cultural aspects of this book very interesting, to the point where I was like stopping to Google stuff. I thought it was very interesting. Her family actually reminds me a lot of my wife's like very Italian family, so I found it really interesting and really fun to watch her try to find someone who shares the value of her culture instead of being with the white guy she was with in the beginning, who was obsessed with the fact that he was German, which I don't want to be mean, but that's sort of a red flag, right? Like a little bit. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was a really nice contemporary romance that I found myself engaged in the whole time. And sometimes I get bored with contemporary romance depending on who's writing it and how it is. But I've already put her other books on my TBR because I thought that sounded really good after reading this. I really enjoyed her writing. Next, I read The Fox and the Flame by Kassandra Flamouri. This was also an ebook, and it's a YA fantasy. In King's Garden, magic and prosperity go hand in hand, and the future is limitless if you're a man. Unladylike, bookish, and wholly uninterested in being a princess, Arismendi has one dream: to open King's Garden's first school for girls. But such a dream is expensive. Too expensive for a woman with no legal right to money of her own. Ari's only hope is the insufferable but fabulously wealthy lord who promises to fund her school in exchange for her hand in marriage. Seeing no other choice, Ari accepts the bargain, giving up any hope of love, until a beautiful girl kisses her on the very eve of her betrothal. With the help of her secret love and a hard-won mountain of gold, Ari sets out to open her school, but she soon discovers that her biggest obstacle was never money. It was fear. And there's nothing more frightening to men in power, it seems, than a girl with a book. There are secrets in the garden, and Ari's enemies will do anything to keep them. To protect her students, her dreams, and her very kingdom, Ari must finally become what she was born to be, a princess, or perhaps a queen. This book felt very slow for a fantasy, but I felt that it reflected the main character Ari's struggles with misogyny. It was super difficult for her to get anything done because of men who were blocking her every step of the way, and I really did understand her frustration. It was like even frustrating to read. Even though she's a princess because of misogyny and also because of her family's finances, there really wasn't much she could do about these things for quite a while. Okay, I'm gonna put spoilers here. I'm gonna mark it off, okay? Okay. I really thought the author wasn't going to be able to kill her darlings, but she proved me wrong, which is awesome. It just didn't happen for like a long time until like almost all the way at the end. I also didn't love one of the side characters being killed off because I felt like it messed up with a slavery plotline that was in this book. I thought it was pretty gross that this character was killed for character development. I didn't love that. I wish that maybe they had picked like a different character, but it, you know, spoilers over. Okay, so overall I think that this book pulled it together in the last part of it, but it wasn't perfect. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I found it entertaining, but I really wish it had tightened up the slavery plotline. Like, ooh. Next I read Queen of Queens and Whispers by Helen Cocoran. This is a YA fantasy as well, and I read it in paperback. When teenage Queen Leah inherits her corrupt uncle's bankrupt kingdom, she brings a new spy master into the fold. I don't know if the X is supposed to be pronounced like SH like in Chinese, or if it's like a Z kind of sound. I'm gonna go with Zania. I don't know. Who takes the job to avenge her murdered father. Faced with dangerous plots and hidden enemies, can Leah and Zania learn to rely on each other as they discover that all is not fair in love and treason. The throne means both power and duty, so they must decide what to sacrifice for their country and for each other. This book was everything I wanted for fantasy books. I loved that there was a lot of court intrigue and actions had real and meaningful consequences. Why the two main characters couldn't be together was very compelling, and I understood why. It made a lot of sense. I adored this book so much I would literally pay money to be able to go back in time and read it again for the first time. I am excited to read the sequel. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. If you love court intrigue and like spy master stuff and like murder, you're really gonna like this one, I promise. Godslayers by Zoe Hana Mikuta was next. It's paperback. This is a YA science fiction dystopian. It is the second in the series. It's a duology. The Gearbreakers struck a devastating blow against Godolia on Heaven's Day, but the cost of victory has been steep. Months later, the few rebels who've managed to escape the tyrannical empire's bloody retribution have fled to the mountains, hunted by the last Zenith, Godolia's only surviving leader. Arias has been held prisoner since the attack on the capital city, which almost killed her, and she begins to wish it had when she discovers Sona, the girl she loves, the girl she would tear down cities for, also survived, only to be captured and corrupted by the Zenith. The cybernetic brainwashing that Sona has forcibly undergone has her believing herself a loyal soldier for Godolia, and Arias' mortal enemy. With the rebellion shattered and Godolia moving forward with an insidious plan to begin inducting Badlands children into a new wind-up pilot program, the odds have never been more stacked against the Gearbreakers. Their last hope for victory will depend on whether Arias and Sona can somehow find their way back to each other from opposite sides of the war. So the first book of this was Gearbreakers. This book was very hard to pick back up because it was quite a while in between books, but once I got it, it was super good. I think this was a very satisfying conclusion to this duology. If you like mechas and dystopian stuff, you will definitely like this book. I really enjoyed it. I did, however, picture the Zenith as the Collector from the Owl House the entire time, even though they don't look anything alike. There was something about the last Zenith being like a child that just made me think of the Collector, and I don't know why. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I felt like it was a very good conclusion. I felt like the author was willing to have like stakes. I really enjoyed it. I then read Behind the Scenes by Corellia Stetz-Waters. This is a paperback contemporary romance. Business consultant Rose Jostin might not have officially reached pug lady middle age, but she's already got the pugs, along with their little Gucci coats and trash-loving appetites. Still, life is good with her work, her sisters, and a secret hobby creating incredibly tactile, if surprisingly sexy, mindfulness videos. So why does it feel like it's not quite enough? Which is exactly when former filmmaker Ash Stewart enters camera left and Rose's world suddenly goes full Technicolor. Ash never looks at anyone, not since her ex ripped her heart from her chest in Spielberg-esque style, crushing Ash's reputation, dreams, and directorial career in one fatal blow. But Rose is altogether different. She's curvy, beautiful, and just so damn put together. And her business expertise might be Ash's best bet for getting her last film and her last chance financed. Now, if they can just keep their attraction under wraps, Ash's lost dream could finally come true. But are they creating movie magic or setting the stage for disaster? This book really surprised me. It was wonderful to see two middle-aged women getting another shot at love. They're, I think, 40 and 38. The characters were millennial, but not like overbearingly so, like in Penny for Your Heart. I found that they were just just barely missing the cringe-o-meter. I love that they had their own careers and life goals and stuff going on. Even though it was like a workplace romance, I didn't feel like it was a weird imbalance of power, because Rose was just like a consultant and she was doing it pro bono, she was doing it for free. So like there was no like hierarchy that would have made this a big problem. I also really love that there was a big discussion about trauma and sexual dysfunction for Ash. I would really love more romance authors to know that like not everybody gets off right away or like on a hair trigger. Like sometimes there's trauma and there's stuff that needs to be worked on and you need to kind of finagle and figure out what's going on. And as somebody who's had like some dysfunction in that area, I thought it was like really nice to see in this book that there was a main character who not only is working on it, but has a love interest who is willing to give her the time to go slow and not push past boundaries like we see in so many romance books. I thought this book had really nice representation of that. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I think if it was a little less millennially, it would have been given a higher rating, but like I overall did really enjoy this one. Next, I read The Ruthless Lady's Guide to Wizardry by C.M. Wagner. I read this on ebook. This is a fantasy romance. Delaria Wells, petty con artist, occasional thief, and partly educated fire witch, is behind on her rent in the city of Leasecourt again. Then she sees the wanted sign seeking female person of martial or magical ability to guard a lady of some importance prior to the celebration of her marriage. Deli fast talks her way into the job and joins a team of highly peculiar women tasked with protecting their wealthy charge from unknown assassins. Deli quickly sets her sights on one of her companions, the confident and well-bred Win Sanalam? I'm not sure how you would say that. The job looks like nothing but romance and easy money until things take a deadly and undead turn. With the help of a bird-loving necromancer, a shape-shifting schoolgirl, and an ill-tempered, reanimated mouse named Buttons, Deli and Win are determined to get the best of an adversary who wields a twisted magic and has friends in the highest of places. This book had me kicking my feet and like giggling at work. Thankfully I do overnights, so like no one hurt me. The kids are all asleep, my coworker's asleep, it's fine. I don't think this is a romantasy as far as I understand. I'm not sure I completely understand the difference between like fantasy romance and like fantasy that has romance in it. I'm assuming it's more focused on the romance, but like it's hard to make distinctions sometimes, in my opinion. But this is everything I would desperately want in romantasy to have. It had like good world building, good explanation of how class works and like some of the magic. It had really lovable characters and an adorable romance. I really liked Deli and Win's romance. I thought it was really cute. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I think you will too if you like fantasy. Then I read One Last Breath by Ginny Myers-Sane. This was an ebook YA thriller. Mount Orange, Florida is famous for 2 things: cerulean freshwater springs, ideal for freedivers who aren't afraid of lurking gators, and the gruesome cold case murder of best friends Bailey and Celeste 20 years ago. Bailey and Celeste's murders cast a permanent darkness over sunny Mount Orange. True has always lived in that shadow. Now she's supposed to head to FSU in the fall with her boyfriend, but those unsolved murders and the death of her own sister invade her every thought. It's only in the shadowy deep of Hidden Glen Springs that she can breathe. When a strange girl named Rio rolls into town, hell-bent on figuring out who killed Bailey and Celeste, True can't resist entangling herself in the thrill of solving the decades-old mystery any more than she can resist her familiar, aching attraction to Rio. As the summer heat ignites, so does the spark between True and Rio, along with their otherworldly connection to Bailey and Celeste. But when someone begins stalking them, the girls become convinced the killer is back in town. And if they keep digging into the past, True and Rio know this time it could be their blood that makes the springs run red. I really liked that I kept like flip-flopping on who the killer might be. Like I couldn't completely decide, but actually turns out that my first guess was right. Spoilers here for all of you who want to avoid spoilers. I thought that the reincarnation stuff was kind of weird and stupid. I kept waiting for it to be disproven, but it never was. They were basically validated in believing they were the reincarnated version of these girls. Also, like, for a book that has 2 serial killers, there really wasn't any murder. Like, there was barely any murder on page. It was kind of frustrating. I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like, there were elements I really liked, like the freakiness of the free diving, which is like being underwater with like one breath scares the hell out of me. I don't know how these girls were doing it, but no thank you. So I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Like, it wasn't the worst, but it definitely wasn't my favorite thriller I've read recently. Like, it was just okay. I then read my last fiction book for my Sapphic book club, which is The Incandescent by Emily Tesh. I finished it way faster than them. I feel really bad. This is an adult fantasy novel. Also, can I just say how proud I am for like joining a book club? I'm like so scared of human interaction. I'm doing it. I'm so proud of myself. Look at you eating magic like you're one of us. Dr. Walden is the director of magic at Chetwood Academy and one of the most powerful magicians in England. Her days consist of meetings, teaching A-level invocation to 4 talented, chaotic sixth formers, more meetings, and securing the school's boundaries from demonic incursions. Walden is good at her job. No, Walden is great at her job. But demons are masters of manipulation. It's her responsibility to keep her school with its 600 students and centuries-old legacy safe. And it's possible the entity Walden most needs to keep her school safe from is herself. I was very confused about the magic system. I'm gonna have more spoilers. If you want to skip it, please do. This is a brand new book. I thought the demon summoning was cool, but they never explained why you would teach teenagers to do something this dangerous, or why you yourself would do something this dangerous. Like, I understood teaching the warding and the banishment because sometimes the demons slip through the demonic plane onto the human one, so like it's not like you can stop them from doing that. But I didn't understand why we did the rest of it, like the actual summoning. I didn't get it. You're teaching teenagers to do this and it obviously went disastrously. Also, the other big problem I had with this book is that they could not explain whether or not the demon summoning was even ethical. She was overseeing like her colleagues' class on basic magical ethics with, again, teenagers. And no one could answer whether demons are people. No one could answer whether it's ethical to use magic on demons and summon them. And we also learn later that there's a giant summoning circle that is like being constantly studied. It's always open. It's got this huge demon in it. But we can't even answer if it's ethical to be doing this to them. We learn later that demons can become intelligent. Like, there's one who can read. Like, I don't get why we're summoning them. I don't get it. I don't like it. Like, if you can't explain why you should do it or why it's ethical to do beyond, like, the academic realm, which is where most of this book takes place, then, like, I don't think it's a very good magic system or even, like, academic system if you can't explain why you would bother doing something so dangerous and frankly stupid in this book. Also, there is a butch lesbian in this that is the love interest. Again, we're still in spoilers, so just so you know. I didn't like that she was like a marshal, which was basically kind of like a magic cop. Why? Why couldn't we have made it like a separate thing? Like, it was a demon hunters mixed with like cop, mixed with kind of like military at some points. Like, I didn't really like that. And I didn't like that the character that had the most common sense and actually used magic practically in the field was this butch lesbian, Laura, who we have to, like, listen to because she's right, but at the same time, like, she's a cop. I don't want to root for a cop. So I was going to give this book 3 out of 5 stars because I really didn't think that she was going to get with Laura. And I was like, is she going to get with a man? I know she's bisexual and that's fine, but, like, that's not for me. Laura sounds like a snack, you know? But she did end up getting with Laura, so I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Now spoilers over. Then I read The Persistent Desire, a Femme-Butch reader by Joan Nestle. It has actually like a bunch of contributors, but she's the one who like edited it all together. This is LGBT nonfiction. I haven't really been able to find like a description of this book, so I'll just describe it. There's like short stories, poems, but there's also like academic think pieces on like butch and femme and that kind of stuff, and I really enjoyed that. This book made me cry, and I haven't cried at a book since Harrow the Ninth, which was quite a while ago. This book made me feel so seen, but it's like honestly so sad that femmes and butches are still dealing with a lot of the same things that we were dealing with from the 70s through the 90s. Like, people are still calling us an imitation of heterosexuality, and they're still acting as though butches and femmes are both victims of the patriarchy, and they also tend to hyper infantilize femmes. Like, we don't know any better, and also like we're not actually gay. And I've seen it so much on TikTok too, and it's so weird that we keep experiencing like the cyclical discourse of femme and butch with each new generation. It's a little bit frustrating. This book made me feel so understood and so seen, and sometimes it's really lonely being in a femme for butch relationship and not having any people around you who understand and I really enjoyed that about this book. I also wanted to warn you guys that there is some spice in here. Like, I didn't mind. I was literally like, ooh. But some people do mind, so like if you don't want some smut, don't read this. But I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I usually have a much harder time with nonfiction, but there was really only one article in here that I had a hard time with. So I think it's a really good read, especially if you want to know about like butch, femme, and lesbian culture. The last book I read was Passions Between Women, British Lesbian Culture from 1668 to 1801 by Emma Donoghue. A groundbreaking work of lesbian scholarship, Passions Between Women discovers and brings together for the first time stories of lesbian desires, acts, and identities from the Restoration to the beginning of the 19th century. Where previous historians have concluded that a combination of censorship and ignorance excluded lesbian experience from written history before our era, Emma Donoghue has decisively proved otherwise. She dispels the myth that 17th and 18th century lesbian culture was rarely registered in language, and that lesbians of this period had no words with which to describe themselves. Far from being invisible, the figure of the woman who felt passion for women was a subject of confusion and contradiction. She could be put in a freak show as this potential slur, we're not going to say it, revered as a romantic friend, or jailed as a female husband. By examining a wealth of new medical, legal, and erotic source material, and rereading the classics of English literature, Emma Donoghue has uncovered narratives of an astonishing range of lesbian and bisexual identities in Britain between 1668 and 1801. Female pirates and spiritual mentors, chambermaids and queens, poets and prostitutes, country idols, and whipping clubs all take their place in her intriguing panorama of lesbian lives and loves. Revisionist and frankly sexual in its outlook, Passions Between Women boldly asserts that many relationships between women were more passionate than the romantic friendships evoked by other scholarly works. Original, provocative, and compelling, Emma Donoghue's new book makes an important contribution to lesbian history. This book was so insightful. I really liked learning about lesbian history from this time period, especially since I have already read Surpassing the Love of Men by Lillian Faderman. That book is completely focused on romantic friendship, and it really denies that any of these people were like sexual beings with each other by and large. Emma Donoghue challenges this with like a lot of evidence, like a lot of textual evidence. I particularly enjoyed the sections about female husbands and cross-dressing. I thought that those were very interesting. If anybody knows about like a Sapphic historical romance that's about like female husbands and has like a female husband main character, please let me know. If there aren't, I actually have like an idea for one. I don't know if anyone would be interested, but maybe I'll write it someday, but probably not. Right, I just want to now briefly mention the stats for both months because I love Storygraph. I'm not sponsored, but they should sponsor me someday. Please hit me up. I read 10 books in April, 3,493 pages total. They were all fiction, they were all sapphic. Most of them were digital because I like to try to get through my digital ones because I don't enjoy them very much. And my average rating was 4.03, which is higher than I thought it was going to be, but not a bad month in general. I do try to pick books I like, but the reason I've been doing rant reviews is because sometimes I accidentally get a lot of books I don't like. I also read 10 books in May. I read 3,706 pages. I read 2 nonfiction books and the rest were fiction. They were all also sapphic. I read more in print this month, but pretty much an almost equal amount. My average rating was 4.58, which means I had a really good month. I had a really good May. June is gonna be a mess. Wait till you see the video that's coming out next week. Ooh, this one I did pick on purpose. I knew I wasn't gonna like this, but I hope you guys like my rant review. Overall, it's been a really great 2 months. I'm really proud of myself for catching up, even though I have 2 jobs, so I can go back to reading about 2 books a week. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please comment on what your favorite book was to read during May. I love to hear about other people's recommendations. If you have anything with butches in it, I would love to hear about it. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!